from the Sepang circuit in Malaysia. 21 laps ahead of us of this 5.548 kilometre circuit. The circuit record currently in the hands of Valentino Rossi, but for how long? Loris Capirossi will be doing his level best to break it in the early stages of this race. He starts from pole position for the second successive race from Sete Gibernau and John Hopkins. Shinya Nakano, Kenny Roberts and Nicky Hayden on row 2. Valentino Rossi aiming for that World Championship from the third row of the grid in 7th position from Carlos Checa and Marco Melandri. Row 4, Colin Edwards, Alex Barros and Max Biaggi. Row 5, Olivier Jacques, Tony Elias and Makoto Tamada. And then row 6, Ruben Schaus, Robbie Rolfo, Shane Byrne stepping in for Troy Bayliss at Camel Honda this weekend. And row 7, Franco Battaini and James Allison, the two WTM riders. Allison still riding with that injured elbow.
Not the best seat in the house. I'm standing alongside Loris Capirossi's charming wife. She's just given the double thumbs up to her man on the grid. He's just about to go on his sighting lap.
Loris Capirossi gets 2 thumbs up from his wife. Will he be getting 2 thumbs up from the bosses at Ducati at the end of the race? He's been outblasted down to the end of the straight, certainly for this warm-up lap, it seems, by Sete Gibernau. Let's just have a little look at that circuit. We'll talk about it once again in greater detail during the race. It's a very, very tight turn, even tighter in fact than the one at Motegi, but it's such a big wide track here that there's not that much scope for collisions. It twists and turns right, then left, then right again, very fast. 4th gear right-hander as the riders charge down. We ride on board now here, I think, with Max Biaggi as he tips it into the long right-hander. Over the blind crest and then throw it down left into this very important second section. They go left and then they go right. And, well, in the meantime, confirmation of the way the Riders' Championship stands going into this round. 112 points separate Valentino Rossi from Max Biaggi. Colin Edwards currently in 3rd place from Marco Melandri, Nicky Hayden, Loris Capirossi all have a chance of finishing 2nd in the championship. But basically, the simple mathematics are that if Biaggi wins today, Rossi must finish 4th. If Biaggi is 2nd, he must be 8th. If Biaggi is 3rd, Rossi must be 12th. Biaggi is 4th, Rossi needs a single point. And anything outside the top 4 for Biaggi means that Rossi is automatically crowned world champion.
I've got to say the odds are with him, haven't you? But he's got to go into Qatar with a 100-point lead in the championship, Valentino Rossi. And, well, unless there's a dramatic change from qualifying and practice, you really can't see Max Biaggi winning this race. And Valentino Rossi, well, will he settle for the points? Will he go for the win? We wait to see. Loris Capirossi's wife is still here. She's going to stand out and watch the start here. She just looked at me and went, I'm really, really nervous. And you can feel the tension here on the start and finish line. The red flag is being shown. 21 lap board is out. I peer away to the left, and I think the first machines are about to come into way. This is round 13 of the MotoGP World Championship. We're at Sepang in Malaysia. It's a race and a circuit where the king of MotoGP, Valentino Rossi, could retain his world title. But there's a certain gentleman by the name of Loris Capirossi, joined on the front row by Sete Gibernau and John Hopkins, that want to make life very, very difficult for the doctor. Loris Capirossi has arrived, that white number 65 on the red fairing of his Ducati. We wait for John Hopkins. Nicky Hayden, I can see where that number 69 has also arrived. Carlos Checa. John Hopkins arrives on the front row of the grid, number 21 on the white fairing of the Suzuki. And in the middle of that front row of the grid, Sete Gibernau seeking his first Grand Prix victory of the season on the Telefonica Movistar Honda. The red flag has been taken away. 21 laps of the Sepang circuit. The lights are on red. And they're holding on red. They're still on red. This is a long, long start. Are there problems with the lights? The field aren't getting away. There is a problem with the lights. One would imagine, or somebody behind. Here we go again. This time are they going? They are.
Gibernau gets away well from the front row in 2nd place, but watch out for Loris Capirossi in the drag race down to that first corner. Capirossi already, John Hopkins on the Suzuki getting sucked up into the middle of the pack there by Nicky Hayden. Oh, and he touches with Gibernau into turn 1. Hayden and Gibernau touch, but they all manage to stay on board. Somehow, Loris Capirossi leads. Is that Marco Melandri who's come through into 2nd place, but certainly Gibernau and Hayden touched into the first turn.
They were very, very lucky, both of them, to stay on board. That's the pressure, that's the pace. Capirossi's got away at the front, but what a fight behind him.
Marco Melandri is in second place, but not for long. Here comes Shinya Nakano, his equal best grid of the season so far, in fourth place, and now up to second place ahead of the Honda of Melandri. Nicky Hayden riding well in fourth place.
Shinya Nakano's made a great start. Dives up the inside there of Melandri and up into second place.
Rossi ahead of Checa into seventh place, so Rossi not making the early progress that perhaps he would have hoped for. Roberts in sixth, and certainly John Hopkins in trouble. Hopkins all the way down to 12th place now. I'm wondering if he just got caught up in that incident between Gibernau and Hayden.
And Max Biaggi in ninth place at the moment. Here comes Rossi up the inside, trailing his left foot. He's got up the inside of one of the Suzukis.
Yeah, it's Kenny Roberts that Roberts has just got past now. So Rossi has just got past. So Rossi now up to sixth place and looking for a way around Sete Gibernau.
We ride with the doctor, we ride with the world champion. Fourth place this afternoon will be enough for him to retain his 2005 World MotoGP Championship, a championship he won for Yamaha last year.
Come up around the back end of this circuit for the first time. Down into this long straight that runs parallel to the start-finish straight here, with this big grandstand in between, and Shinya Nakano just for a second there looked as though he might challenge Loris Capirossi for the lead. Capirossi has got a big chance to escape here at the front, because the Kawasaki really does have a horsepower deficit compared to the Ducati as they come down the straight. Nakano doing a sterling job to hang on there in second place. Melandri comes out of his slipstream as they come down into turn one for the second time. Melandri on the brakes, looks to come through. Melandri with 35 stitches in his left foot does ever so well to hold on to the brakes there, particularly pushing down. Oh, and then Nicky Hayden tucks him right behind Shinya Nakano again into turn two.
Valentino Rossi desperate to get past Sete Gibernau as Capirossi gets away at the front. What a brave ride though by Marco Melandri, as you say. Came in on a wheelchair on Monday evening into the hotel, but there he is in second place. Here comes Rossi. Gibernau up the inside of Nicky Hayden. So Gibernau now up the inside of Hayden, taking over fourth place.
Well, this is an incredible performance from Marco Melandri, who arrived in Malaysia on a wheelchair on Monday evening after that horrendous crash with Valentino Rossi. Well, the crash in itself wasn't too bad, but it was the injury, the foot peg spiking through his boot and injuring his foot. He had 18 stitches on the inside of the wound, 17 stitches on the outside. Let's have a look here at the collision between Gibernau and Hayden. Well, it was very, very close indeed, but it was Gibernau on the inside, Hayden around the outside. And really no room for Gibernau to do anything else, and really you've got to say doing extremely well, not only to stay on the bike but to come back as quickly as he has done into this race. Here comes Gibernau up on the inside, they touch once again, perhaps Gibernau just reminding Nicky Hayden that he's not a man to be pushed around, and now Gibernau comes through into fourth place, Hayden pushed back to fifth. How can the American youngster respond?
Well, two clashes already in the very early stages of the race between the two Hondas. And tremendous stuff, but at the moment it's Loris Capirossi at the front. Melandri second, Nakano third, Gibernau, Valentino Rossi just tucking in behind Nicky Hayden. You would think he would try and get past the Hondas at the earliest opportunity. Carlos Checa also in there. Kenny Roberts behind Rossi.
Oh, and there goes Nakano, and he's taken one of the Movistar Hondas down with him. He's taken Gibernau, Shinya Nakano and Sete Gibernau crash out of the front group. Oh, well, the smiles in Kawasaki. They know that their rider has probably had his best few laps of the season so far, but they've all ended too quickly. And now Hayden is back up into those podium positions in third place. Rossi fourth from Roberts and Checa. Rossi online with these positions as they stand to lift the MotoGP World Championship 2005. His only rival, the only possible man who can stop him is Max Biaggi, and he's down in seventh. But that just opens things up nicely for Loris Capirossi at the front.
Sete Gibernau's appalling season continues. We really can't believe his luck. We'll wait to see a replay before we blame for the crash. But Gibernau was up the inside, so perhaps it was him, but we'll wait and see. Let's have a look again.
It is Gibernau at the inside. And he's got very, very late onto the brakes there. He had nowhere to go as Shinya Nakano tipped it in. Well, that is not too dissimilar to the crash we saw in the 250cc race last week with Lorenzo and De Angelis. And I've got the Spanish commentators in the box near here next to me, Nick, and they're all on their feet. Not Sete Gibernau, he's on his knees, he's in the gravel once again. And Gibernau's dreadful season continues in Malaysia.
Well, we go to Qatar next week. Qatar was the last time Sete Gibernau won a MotoGP race, would you believe it? A year ago. Marco Melandri still in second place. Valentino Rossi now giving Nicky Hayden a hard time. Rossi trying to challenge for third place. I'll go down and see what his board tells him. I wonder if it would tell him where Biaggi is. I wonder if it would tell him Gibernau out. I would imagine at the moment they just let him run his race.
Yeah, I really don't think, Nick, that he needs to know any information. He knows that if Biaggi's behind him, he's won the World Championship, whatever happens. He knows that he finishes in the top 4, he's won the World Championship, whatever happens. And there goes Nicky Hayden on the brakes ahead of Marco Melandri. He fancies his chances up into second place. And Hayden, who's really struggled on race tyres this weekend, moving up ahead of Melandri, and now he chases down Loris Capirossi. Nick, I'm just looking at the lap times here. We're seeing Nicky Hayden going to a 2:02.993. That really is quicker than he's gone all weekend, and you just wonder if this theory about Michelin tyres could be true. We're hearing that Michelin brought in a new container of fresh tyres last night in response to Bridgestone's dominance here this weekend, and the problems that the Michelin riders have had with heat running into the front tyre in particular over a short period of laps. They were very, very worried indeed about that, and all the Michelin riders just seem to have found something extra for the race today. Could that be it?
Could be, and I can tell you they're not telling Valentino Rossi absolutely anything, just how far the man in front is and how far the man behind is. They're not telling him who's out of the race, where Max Biaggi is. They're just letting him get on with the race. I can imagine he can probably look at the big screen occasionally, that's what riders do, and just looking at the men in front, he realised that Max Biaggi is not in front of him.
Here comes Rossi looking to get up the inside of Marco Melandri, not quite close enough this time, but for how long? These two riders, the last time they were on a racetrack together, couldn't have got much closer. Rossi colliding with Melandri on the brakes. I wonder if that's just going through his mind now. Obviously not, as he dives up the inside of Melandri again. Melandri this time just backs off a little bit and lets Rossi through. The reigning world champion has got the 2005 title in his sights, and he desperately wants to clinch it with a victory. He knows that Loris Capirossi is not getting away, as Capirossi might have wanted to over these opening laps. Spectator attendance here of 47,338. The Malaysian FA Cup final last night. Soccer, no doubt the biggest sport here in Malaysia, but I think the crowd here today even tops that. Motorcycling continues to grow in this part of the world, and it's really nice to see this circuit that was purpose-built for Formula One packed out with MotoGP fans.
Yeah, they're putting on a good show for them as well, aren't they? Loris Capirossi working very, very hard indeed at the front. Nicky Hayden going well in second place. Valentino Rossi already beginning to threaten in third place. What a brave ride by Melandri.
17 laps to go, then we are, 4 laps into this MotoGP race here, and Hayden is reeling in Loris Capirossi at the front. The pace from Capirossi, as I said, perhaps not quite as quick as we expected. A 2:03.694 from Capirossi on that last lap. It certainly seemed from the warm-up this morning, when of course the track was a little bit cooler, that the riders were going to be able to go into the 2:02s during the race here. But so far that's not the case, and you just wonder how Sete Gibernau will be feeling when he looks at those lap times when he comes in, because he was the man to set the pace in the warm-up, and perhaps that level of impatience perhaps that he showed over the opening few laps is what has cost him in the end.
Well, I'm in the Repsol Honda pit wall at the moment. Very happy indeed with the performance of Nicky Hayden. I think just when we spoke to Nicky Hayden on the grid, he sounded a lot more confident than perhaps he'd sounded after qualifying. The morning warm-up seemed to really give him some indication that things are going to get better. I think he really is pushing very hard indeed at the moment behind Loris Capirossi. Valentino Rossi looking good in third place, and of course that would be enough to give him that world title once again.
Behind Rossi is Marco Melandri, but just stretching out a little bit there, Olivier Jacques has retired from this race. There he is on his return to action with Kawasaki, his third appearance of the season so far. Of course, that second place in the wet in Shanghai, followed up in his home race at Le Mans earlier in the season, but now it looks certain that Jacques will be continuing to the end of the season as a replacement for the injured Alex Hoffman. Here comes Nicky Hayden for the first time, perhaps challenging Loris Capirossi for the lead. Not this time. There's the tyre choice. There's a hard front and a medium rear from Capirossi. Medium front, medium rear from Nicky Hayden, which is quite interesting, really. You would think perhaps they go for the hardest possible compound, but then again also with the low grip levels that this circuit has shown to have this weekend, you do run the risk of crashing out in the early laps, as we've seen Gibernau and Nakano and Gibernau do already. So Rossi also on a medium front and medium rear. Melandri, a little bit of drift now, and there is Nakano, so a bad day all round for Kawasaki. Both their riders out of the race, and behind Melandri, Carlos Checa in 5th place, Kenny Roberts currently in 6th, from Max Biaggi, Alex Barros, John Hopkins, who's just got past Colin Edwards for 9th place, Edwards 10th, Elias Tamada, Rolfo, Shaky Burns, who's actually now lapping in times similar to what he managed on a qualifying tyre yesterday afternoon. He's now in 14th place ahead of Ruben Schaus, James Ellison and Franco Battaini.
Yeah, I'm in the Kawasaki pit at the moment, Matt, and they're both back here, both riders, not wanting to speak to anybody at the moment. But Olivier Jacques was a mechanical problem, as we suspected, and Gibernau and Nakano, as we saw the accident involving Gibernau, as the garage doors come down, almost taking off Randy Mamola's head as he tries to put his head under the garage doors. That's that for the moment. We hope to have a word with Harold Eckel a little bit later on.
The front three bunching up now, and Valentino Rossi is closing in on Loris Capirossi at the front. The gap between Hayden and Rossi has been reduced by 0.2 of a second through that section, and as you can see now from the onboard camera of Nicky Hayden, Rossi has him in his sights. And well, Rossi, of course, a 4-time MotoGP world champion. On each of those 4 times he's clinched the title with a victory, and you just get the feeling from the way that he is that he would like nothing else here really today. 3rd place would almost be bittersweet celebrations for the Italian, but against all odds here, he has a chance of winning this race, because Loris Capirossi is right there. He's in almost touching distance of Rossi as they now power down this straight once more. It's a Ducati from a Honda, from a Yamaha. Capirossi, Hayden and Rossi. Melandri, Checa, Roberts.
And I'm with Pete Benson at the moment, of course, Nicky Hayden's crew chief. He's making a good fist of it at the moment. Pete's doing very well indeed. Sorry, he's doing very well indeed at the moment, Nicky, hanging into 2nd place.
It's looking pretty good at the moment. We've still got 15 laps to go, so it's going to be pretty tough, but it's pretty hot out there.
He seemed a lot more confident after the warm-up, talking to him on the line.
Yeah, we didn't really get off to a good start this weekend. We couldn't get the bike, so he's really happy, and made a couple of changes overnight. Sort of a bit of a gamble, but it seems to have paid off, and he seems to be on the gas now.
So let's get back to the real job.
Thanks, mate.
Nicky Hayden's doing a real job, certainly in 2nd place. Pete Benson there talking to Nick Harris, Nicky Hayden's chief mechanic, and but it seems as though they found some solutions for Nicky Hayden. He has struggled this weekend. He was 11th fastest in the first free practice on Friday morning, 15th in the wet on Friday afternoon, but came up with the 3rd quickest time yesterday morning, 6th on the grid with a fast lap at the very, very end of the session to dislodge Valentino Rossi from the 2nd row of the grid. And now he seems to have converted that into a good race pace as well. He was in the mid to high 202s this morning in the warm-up, Nicky Hayden, which suggested podium pace, and he certainly converted that into the race. As I said, the pace a little bit slower now than it was in the warm-up this morning, but the temperatures are a lot higher. We're running now in the high 203s, and Hayden and Rossi now just reeling in Loris Capirossi a little bit, and I'm just wondering if perhaps at this stage of the race, with that medium front Michelin tyre, they do have a slight advantage over Capirossi. How long will that advantage last? Rossi once again with his foot off the foot peg, getting very, very close indeed to Nicky Hayden. There's no doubt about it. Rossi is pushing to the absolute limit here.
I'm in the Yamaha pit as Rossi and crew come through. Still leading the way. Loris Capirossi coming under pressure now from Nicky Hayden. Hayden on the brake. No, not through.
Well, we might just run it a little bit wide there as well, Nick, into turn 1. He does, but not wide enough for Valentino Rossi to take advantage. So Hayden hangs on to 2nd place, but definitely Hayden there looking to try and get up Loris Capirossi in on the inside at the end of that front straight. Swoop down now through this 4th gear right-hander and onto the brakes into the 2nd gear, 90 kilometres an hour right-hander, then up the hill. A straight drag over a blind crest. It is a blind entry into this corner. The left-hander 3rd gear, 180 kilometres an hour. Vital to get a good line through this section because it's a real flowing series of corner coming up. and you've got to get your line right through each and every one of them. Third gear, 160 kilometres an hour, up to fourth, and then back onto the brakes through this double apex. Two right-handers through the first, through the second, then back on the gas once again. Hayden sliding that rear tyre as he looks to try and get the drive to maybe challenge Capirossi into this tight left. We ride with Hayden once again. Right behind him is Valentino Rossi, who passed Marco Melandri in this very corner. The tight left, and then goes up the hill, sweeps right, and then over the crest of right-handers, second gear, 110 kilometres an hour. And then back down towards this all-important flowing left-hand corner, third gear, 140 kilometres an hour. And then into this tight, winding right-hander that gets tighter and tighter and tighter. The more and deeper you get into it, it's banked, so it's in favour of the riders, but so crucial to get the speed right through there, to get good drive on the exit down into this straight. Look at the drive that Rossi gets as he pulls right up behind Nicky Hayden. Will Rossi once again try and get up the inside? Last time we saw him here, he had his foot off the peg. This time he keeps it on, and the three remain as they were. Look at Carlos Checa, who's come from nowhere to pass Marco Melandri there for fourth place. So Checa putting together a string of good lap times, and in fact Checa is actually lapping at the moment quicker than his teammate at the front. Well, he was on the last lap anyway, but Capirossi steps up his pace, and Rossi's got through to second place.
And Rossi has got in front of Nicky Hayden as they go up the main straight. Rossi now in front of Nicky Hayden, up into second place, so the chase is on for the man at the front.
Rossi drawing on all his strength and all his talent and all his experience here at Sepang today. He is almost certainly going to win the World Championship here this weekend. He only needs to beat Max Biaggi, and Biaggi is currently down in 7th place. Rossi is up to 2nd, but as I said before, when Valentino Rossi parties, he does it in style. His last 4 World Championships have all come with a victory, and he will want nothing less here today, and this is the moment that he does it. Hayden, once again, as he did into turn 1 on the previous lap, runs it wide into turn 14. Look how sideways he gets there onto the brakes, runs it wide, and Rossi is able to just slip through into 2nd place.
Yeah, that's pressure from Rossi once again, causing Nicky Hayden just to make that mistake, the turn that brings them back into the start and finish straight. And now Rossi sets off to Loris Capirossi at the front. Hayden hangs in there. Checa doing so well in 4th place. Melandri, Roberts, Biaggi, well, he's got to get in front of Valentino Rossi, who's going to prevent him winning the championship. Barros, Hopkins and Edwards, Elias, Tomato, Rolfo, Shaky Burns still going, Ruben Chaus, Ellison and Battaini, the last of the runners.
Just get the feeling, Nick, that Valentino Rossi wants to try and let Loris Capirossi know he's there as soon as possible, and do exactly what he did to Nicky Hayden on the last lap. Put that wheel in there, let Capirossi know that big yellow number 46 is stalking him, put the pressure on and maybe force him into a mistake. Capirossi hasn't made a mistake yet so far this race, but Rossi now is turning the heat up on his fellow Italian.
This is what he does so well, doesn't he? He pressures riders from 2nd place to make a mistake. Loris Capirossi, though, has been around a long time, 125 and 250cc world champion. I don't think he'll let that pressure get to him, but Rossi will keep pressing as they come past me once again.
Yamaha vibrates all over the place as he just runs it onto the rumble strip on the exit of that final turn, and loses a little bit of drive actually into the straight, but makes up ground on the brakes to Capirossi. Nicky Hayden sticks there as well, but again Nicky Hayden just runs it wide. He's doing everything he possibly can here, Nicky Hayden, into those 2 very heavy braking areas to try and close the gap to the 2 men in front of him, but each time he just seems to overcook it just that little bit. Loris Capirossi said on Thursday that he likes the Sepang circuit because it's a wide track and it's good for fighting. Well, he's got a fight on his hands here because Rossi is about to get his boxing gloves out any second now, and just look at the line Rossi takes as they swoop down through this left. As I said, it's the blind crest that brings him over to it, and then a real section that Rossi will like through here. It's a 250 style section. You've got to carry plenty of corner speed, get your lines right, and certainly that is where the Yamaha is definitely, if it has an advantage over the Ducati anywhere at this circuit, I would say it's got to be through that section.
It certainly is, and Rossi closing all the time. Perhaps he'll even have a go at him at the end of that back straight, the straight that runs parallel that brings him back into the start and finish straight on the brakes. That's where he's certainly caused Nicky Hayden a few problems. Got Nicky Hayden to run wide on the last lap, but he's closer than he ever has been before. Perhaps he's going to have a go any moment now on the brakes. The top speed about 310 kilometres an hour before they break down to 1st gear for the hairpin. They're not quite at that position yet, but when they get there, that's when I think Rossi may have a go, or at the end of the start and finish straight.
Again, this series of corners, absolutely vital to get drive onto that back straight here, especially through this right-hander. went out there to have a look on Friday morning at the riders, and it's really quite incredible to see so close up the way that they line that corner up. They almost park the bike before they get on the gas and fire it out of that corner. Capirossi, I think, just has the advantage over Rossi here. The foot again off the foot peg once again. Rossi insisting that that's his style. He's not out of control. It was held against him at Jerez, of course, in the opening round when he went up the inside of Gibernau into the final corner of the whole race to take the victory there and really mark the start of what has been a wretched season for the Spaniard. So, well, Capirossi, Nick, if Rossi's intentions of sticking that big number 46 on the inside of the Ducati and letting him know he's there, Capirossi's pit crew also letting him know he's there, the pressure is on the man at the front, and he's not been able to get away.
No, he certainly hasn't. You've got to say that Nicky Hayden's doing a really good job in third place. He's made a couple of mistakes, hasn't he? He's run it wide a couple of times, but he's still hanging onto the rear wheel of Valentino Rossi there. So, great ride by Nicky Hayden.
We ride now with the Kentucky Kid, as he likes to call himself, again over that blind crest and through this almost 250 style section of the racetrack. We ride with Nicky Hayden. Ahead of him, the Doctor, Valentino Rossi, and ahead of Rossi is the race leader, Loris Capirossi, looking for back-to-back victories for the first time in his career. Keep an eye on Carlos Checa in fourth place. He's not had a podium so far this season. He's battling for his MotoGP future. He's now just under 2 seconds down on these men at the front, but he's actually lapping quicker than the race leader, Loris Capirossi on that last lap, a 2:04.196, Checa a 2:03.987. Here comes Rossi for the lead for the first time. The crowd are on their feet in front of me. Their hands are raised in the air. Rossi leads the Malaysian Grand Prix. He won here 1 year ago. He's determined to stop Loris Capirossi taking back-to-back victories. He's determined to win the World Championship in the only way he knows how, with a victory. Here they come once again now. Down the back straight will Loris Capirossi try and get Rossi back as soon as he possibly can into this left-hander. Rossi's going to hang on for the time being. This is going to be a very, very interesting second half to the race. Rossi runs it wide. Capirossi is through. Oh, and Rossi, having snatched the lead from the Italian, he loses it within seconds. The fans that were on their feet in front of me, looking at the big screens across the way, and now sat back down again. They can't believe it. Here comes Rossi again on the brakes on the inside of Capirossi into turn one. Will he run it wide again? He does a little bit, but manages to pull it back round. Capirossi again relegated to second place, and now Rossi will look to make it stick.
It certainly will. That was the yellow 46 flags came out in the grandstand momentarily. They went down again. They don't know what to do. They're out again, but let's see if he can stick this time. But obviously, the track temperatures, the tyres are taking a tremendous pounding out there, and when the riders do get by, they're still running it wide, and they're still having problems. And if people like Capirossi and Valentino Rossi are having problems, you can imagine anyone. But look at Carlos Checa in fourth place. He is absolutely flying for same. Just keep an eye on those lap times.
It's like a game of Simon Says here in the grandstand in front of me. Their arms went in the air as Rossi passed Capirossi. They went on their heads as he ran it wide into that final turn, and then they were all pointing all the way down the straight there as they all tried to get each other's attention to let them know that Rossi was back through for the lead. But again, as we said before, Carlos Checa, look at those lap times, 2:03.685 from the Spaniard in fourth place. Rossi with a 2:04.301 as he battled with Loris Capirossi. Checa is on his way, and he could definitely have a say in the outcome of this race.
Certainly good with those lap times. I think this is a pivotal part of the race. I think Rossi's trying to get away now. Can Capirossi, Hayden, or even Checa stay with him? Certainly Capirossi is at the moment. This is a very difficult long right-hander that brings him back onto the straight, and he's certainly not close enough this time, Loris Capirossi, to cause Rossi any problems. 310 kilometres an hour at 195 miles an hour, then down through the gearbox, on the brakes as hard as you dare. We're with Capirossi. Tip it in first gear, ride it out as hard as you can, and try not to run it too wide. It's not easy.
Capirossi with those specially designed gloves to protect the knuckles that he smashed to pieces earlier in his career on both hands. And now those hands are gripping tightly to that Ducati Desmo Sedici. Carlos Checa once again. Well, actually this time, to be fair, now that Rossi has got to the front, and without those two mistakes, he's managed to get his lap times back down into the 2:03s again, a 2:03.664 from Rossi this time. Checa with a 2:03.7, so Checa actually losing a tenth to Rossi on that last lap.
Confirmation points. We don't even need your maths, Matt, to work that out. Rossi would be world champion if the results remain the same, and even if he doesn't win the race, and certainly Capirossi and Hayden have got something to say about that before the end of the race, he still would be world champion. We know Valentino Rossi, he wants to win the championship, he wants to retain the championship, winning the race here in Malaysia. Now, can those guys hang on to him? And what about Checa, as you say, just dropped a couple of tenths of a second on the last lap.
Well, again, it will be interesting to know if that's certainly true about those Michelin tyres, Nick. I think Valentino Rossi just mentioning yesterday that he'd been using the same front tyre, the front Michelin tyre, for 9 of 12 races this year, and it's worked perfectly at every one. They used the same tyre in testing when they were here back in January and February as well, and Rossi was absolutely flying there to laps of 202s on race tyres in similar temperatures. The grip levels are very different here this weekend. There seems to be a layer of dirt over the track surface that's gathered, and the riders, particularly the Michelin riders, have found it very difficult to break through that layer of dirt and get to the actual tarmac itself and get some load onto the front tyre. And that's certainly been the case for the two Yamaha riders, Rossi and Edwards. But if it's true that Michelin brought a new container of tyres over here last night, then they certainly seem to be working. The lap times are actually not as fast as they were in the race last year, and not perhaps as fast as we might have expected before this weekend, but taking into account the context of the race here with those grip levels and the way the lap times have been all weekend, this is a fairly decent pace from Rossi. Now Capirossi will again challenge him for the lead at the end of the straight. Capirossi looks to have just overcooked it a little bit, but does very, very well to turn that Ducati into the first turn and hang on to the lead once more. 8 laps to go. Capirossi, remember, with a hard front tyre on the Bridgestones. Rossi and Hayden with medium fronts and medium rears, and now perhaps this is the time that Capirossi has decided. 8 laps to go. Perhaps he's got a rubber advantage, and perhaps it's time for the little Italian from Bologna to put his head down and go.
Right, could well be right. 8 laps to go. That shows what an exciting race it is. I'm just looking at the big screen. It doesn't tell us how many laps to go. I thought it was an awful lot more. But yeah, Capirossi's got his head down now. Perhaps the tyre superiority will tell. He's got past him, and now let's see if he can get away from him. Checa, you've got to say, is certainly now closing on Nicky Hayden in 4th place. So it's a Bridgestone's first, Bridgestone's 4th, Ducati's first, Ducati's 4th, and then the Yamaha and the Honda, both on Michelins, with Valentino Rossi and Nicky Hayden.
Now we talk about the progress that Loris Capirossi has made in recent weeks. He finished second at Brno, of course, with that new generation of Bridgestone tyres. Took victory at Motegi. He's leading the race here from pole position as well. But Carlos Checa also starting to get to grips with that Ducati as well now. Perhaps riding the bike a little bit more as he would like to on that new family of tyres. And he's now in 4th place. He scored his best position of the season so far in 4th place at Motegi last weekend. And, well, at the moment he's on course to equal it, but he could even better it with 8 laps to go. And these Ducatis looking stronger than ever at this point of the race. Capirossi leading and Checa closing in on Hayden for 3rd place.
We ride with Nicky Hayden down the straight that runs parallel to the main straight. Down through the gearbox any moment now. Braking very, very hard indeed for the left-hander. 2nd gear. Hold it in 2nd. He's run it wide here a couple of times before. This time it's nice and tight, and he's on to the start and finish straight. Speed going up as he goes up through the gearbox. 5th gear, 6th gear, just over 300 kilometres an hour, and then back down through the gearbox as hard as you dare. Back into 2nd gear, and that tight right-hander. Great onboard shot from Nicky Hayden. We might just get a glance of Carlos Checa coming up the inside any moment now, though. So they stay on board. You might just get a glimpse of red any minute as Checa closes in on him.
Well, Loris Capirossi beat Valentino Rossi to victory at this circuit in the 250cc race back in 1999. Can he do it here on these big, booming MotoGP 4-stroke machines? It's a huge challenge. Rossi took the clean sweep here for Yamaha for the last year, and he did it for Honda the previous year. That is taking pole position, the fastest lap of the race, and the race victory. Will he concede pole position here to Loris Capirossi? Will he concede victory as well? 6.5 laps to find out.
He does win here, Loris Capirossi. It just shows the strides they've made, both Ducati and Bridgestone. Of course, when they came testing here in the winter, Capirossi led the way, didn't he? For all the sessions bar one, which I think Makoto Tamada led. So it does show that they do like the circuit, Ducati, and also the Bridgestone tyres. And Rossi, I can tell you, has not given up the fight yet.
Now, there was a feeling at the time, wasn't there, after those Sepang tests, that Capirossi stuck a qualifying tyre in at the end of each day, and but that perhaps those lap times were a little bit misleading, but certainly the way that Bridgestone have reacted to the data that they gathered during those tests and the way that they've used it here this weekend suggests that they are on an upward climb, and the results certainly over the past few races are showing that. And it's very nice to see, isn't it, Nick, in MotoGP that we have that level of competitivity between the tyre manufacturers as well as the machinery as well, because Ducati, Yamaha and Honda here all with a chance of a podium now. Then how long is Honda's chance going to last, because Nicky Hayden's running wide here. Carlos Checa's gone through to third place. Hayden's fighting back and Hayden back through, so the gloves came off momentarily there between Hayden and Checa, but Hayden hanging on by his fingernails to that third place.
Well, you get in there really tight like Checa did. The trouble is you can't hang it in there all the time, can you? You tend to run it wide when you came out, and I thought Nicky Hayden would run it wide, and then suddenly we saw Checa run it even wider. There is Max Biaggi.
Yeah, that's Biaggi in sixth place. Marco Melandri currently lapping alone in fifth place. A very, very brave ride indeed from Marco Melandri. As we said before, he arrived here in a wheelchair on Monday afternoon, and he's riding with 35 stitches in his foot. But he's holding off, at least for now, the challenge of Max Biaggi in 6th, Kenny Roberts 7th, Barros 8th, Hopkins in 9th, Edwards 10th, Elias 11th, Tamada 12th, Rolfo, Byrne and Schaus making up the points positions at the moment.
He's back at the front with his Ducati, Loris Capirossi. Again, he's just opened up, eked out a few precious metres, hasn't he, over Valentino Rossi. Nicky Hayden momentarily lost third place. He didn't like that, didn't want to come off the podium to Carlos Checa. And he's back in third place, but Checa closing on him, and you just get the feeling again that Capirossi's just up the pace a little bit as Valentino Rossi's left boot again comes off the footrest and he brakes hard. We've seen that happen throughout this race. We've seen it happen throughout the season. But Capirossi is flying. Is he trying to break Rossi now on this lap?
Well, we'll keep it on the lap times. They're back into the 203s on the previous lap. Identical lap times, in fact, from Capirossi and Rossi, 203.804. We ride now with Nicky Hayden, who's having his own personal battle here with Carlos Checa for that third place. It looked for a while as though Hayden might be able to stick in with Rossi and Capirossi and fight for the victory here. I think he's just got his hands full at the moment with this challenge from that number 7 Ducati. Here they come down that back straight once again into this left-hander where Checa attempted the pass on the previous lap. He's going to try it again. Here he comes. We ride, I think, with Checa there, and he runs it wide once again.
He's done it again, hasn't he? As I say, you get in there really hard on the brakes, but you just run out of space. They're running on the rims now. There's not a lot of rubber left on those tyres. That's 2 laps in succession now. We've had great on-board shots of Checa getting up inside of Nicky Hayden, but Hayden being able to take the tighter line and hang in there. Now, it could come to the very last lap. If Checa can make it stick, he could grab third place.
It might not be such a close finish at the front, because Loris Capirossi has just taken 0.4 of a second out of Valentino Rossi. He now leads by 0.688. It does seem as though Capirossi has found a little bit of extra pace here in the second half of the race. Here's that move from Checa once again. Both of those two getting very, very sideways indeed, but Checa unable to keep it online and keep it through the corner. So he is right on the tail of Hayden once again. Now there you can see them like flies almost in the distance from that helicopter. I'm not quite sure how high that helicopter is, but difficult to get a close look. But there, as you can see, Hayden still holding off Checa for third place. And that gap now between Rossi and Capirossi in the front is 0.8 of a second. So Capirossi continues to extend his lead at the front, and he looks to be leaving Rossi behind now with 5 laps to go.
Yeah, what does Rossi do? Does he risk absolutely everything to try and catch Capirossi at the front? I don't think so. We ride with Nicky Hayden again, and that's Carlos Checa, I think, has got in front of him. Checa has, yes, Checa is hanging on. Hayden's going up the inside, side by side once again. They've swapped it again, as you say. Nicky Hayden's got his clothes off momentarily, and then he's putting them back on again. But Checa's stuck this time. For the first time, Checa, the third place, has stuck, and Nicky Hayden has been relegated to 4th place. Now, what can Nicky Hayden do about that? Because we've certainly seen Checa run it wide when he's been on the brakes, but usually when he's been on the brakes trying to get past Nicky Hayden.
Here they come once again, and Hayden gets a chance to get his own back on Carlos Checa, but Checa, well, he should have learned from his mistakes. You would have thought coming into this turn. He's run it wide for the past couple of times, trying to make the pass on Hayden. This time he gets it just right. This is the move that Checa called on Hayden. He's going into the tight left-hander on the opposite side of the circuit, swooping up into that uphill then right-hander. 4 laps to go, and Rossi is desperately trying to stay in touch with Loris Capirossi at the front. 7/10 of a second the gap now, just under 8/10 in fact, between Capirossi and Rossi. He so wants to celebrate his World Championship with a victory here. It looks certain that he's going to get it because Max Biaggi, he's currently in 6th place. He needs to finish in the top 4, Max Biaggi, to have any chance of stopping Rossi, and that's even if Rossi only takes 1 single point out of this race. So really looks as though Rossi now, even if he were to crash out of the race here, would still win the World Championship. And he so wants to take it with a win, as I said. Now we look through the splits here. It's 9/10 the gap between the first split. So Capirossi through that first section taking another 2/10 out of Rossi.
Yeah, just another
slightly more
2/10.
again.
That's right, and a little bit more I think on the second split. So I really think Rossi's riding to the limit on the Yamaha. I don't think he can go any harder. And behind them it does now appear Checa, once he's got into 3rd place, is hanging into 3rd place, and Nicky Hayden just dropping back a little bit.
Well, Max Biaggi, who was up at the front just 7 days ago, it's amazing how much can happen in a week. Certainly in the life of Max Biaggi, he's had an up-and-down career really since he moved to the Premier class after dominating in 250s. And the last week, a real summary of that. He's down in 6th place now. He was 12th on the grid, really struggled with setup for the bike, didn't seem to have a clue what it was, and really that's been the story of his season.
All calm as always in the Yamaha camp. Simple messages going out to Valentino Rossi from the pit board, everybody looking at the screens. No time, no thoughts of celebrations at the moment, but Jerry Birch is obviously here, the crew chief, and Jarvis, and the racing director of Yamaha is here. Davide Brivio also here, the man that runs the Yamaha racing effort. They know their man is very close indeed now to retaining the world title. But Loris Capirossi riding a tremendous race at the front.
The gap now over a second, and it looks certain that Rossi is going to settle for 2nd place. We ride here with Colin Edwards, Valentino Rossi's teammate at Yamaha. He's down in 10th place, perhaps struggling even more than Rossi over the weekend to get load onto that front tyre and get some front grip. In fact, he said yesterday afternoon that the only way he was going to get the right amount of grip around this circuit was to go out overnight and spray Coca-Cola all over the track. But he obviously decided against that option, and well, there's the result. He's down in 10th place. He's 1.4 seconds behind John Hopkins, who incidentally is half a second behind Alex Barros in the fight for 8th place.
Yeah, that's disappointing for Edwards, because obviously with Biaggi in front of him, the gap between 2nd and 3rd place in the championship is going to get bigger. And Edwards really, with consistency, has started just to put a little bit of pressure on Max Biaggi. He certainly, of course, has moved into 3rd place in the championship, but we'll wait to see, because Marco Melandri is in front of him as well.
That gap between Capirossi and Rossi still just over a second, and it does just seem as though once Capirossi passed Rossi and knew that he had that extra pace in the second half of the race here with those Bridgestone tyres, just decided to go for it, and that has proved crucial. It was just a crucial couple of laps that just gave him the advantage over Rossi, and he's now managing that advantage to perfection. He took his first clean sweep at Motegi last week. Loris Capirossi with the fastest lap of the race, pole position and race victory, and he looks on course to do it once again here.
Well, what a day for Ducati if he does it. Livio Supio, their racing director, unfortunately had to leave here. His mother-in-law sadly died back home in Italy, so he had to leave here. But he'll obviously be up with the information and the performance of the Ducati men out in front of me with how many laps to go?
2 laps to go now as they cross the line. 19 gone of 21. Rossi 1.3 seconds down on Loris Capirossi, but well on course to win the MotoGP World Championship for the 5th time. It will be his 2nd time at Sepang. Of course, previously at Phillip Island twice, and Sepang as well, and Rio de Janeiro in 2001.
I'm right in the Yamaha pit box now, right in under the covers with them. I tell you, it's very calm here indeed. Jerry Burgess is always just plotting things from the pit wall. The bikes go past me, but they're very calm. I'm sure the celebrations will start a little bit later on because Valentino Rossi, their man, so close now to really rewriting the history books. His 7th world title and, of course, a 2nd world MotoGP title for Yamaha. And we're not that far away from it now, but very, very calm indeed. Almost surreal here on pit wall at the moment.
I imagine it's something of an anticlimax for them, Nick, isn't it, in some ways? To celebrate the World Championship with a 2nd place, well, for any other rider it would be a dream come true, but perhaps for Rossi, who has celebrated those previous 4 titles with a win, it's not quite the result he would have hoped for. But having said that, the way that this weekend have gone, I reckon if you'd have offered Jerry Burgess and the team 2nd place yesterday evening, then they would have probably snapped your hands off, wouldn't they?
I'm sure they would. And you don't want it to go on too long, do you? I think we all felt he was going to clinch the championship in Motegi last week when he crashed out. So if he hadn't done it this week, there's just that little bit of doubt comes in, doesn't it? You want to get it over with as soon as you can and then just ride relaxed for the rest of the season. Knowing Valentino Rossi, riding relaxed means he just destroys everybody else. But we wait to see. He's had a tough couple of races, and the Ducatis and the Bridgestone tyres have done a brilliant job as they cross the line now. And there we are, Capirossi gone through, Valentino Rossi through, Nicky Hayden gone. I would imagine Carlos Checa has gone as well. I can't look at the screen, but certainly 4 bikes have gone through.
Yeah, Checa through in 3rd place, Nick. He's closing in on Rossi there in 3rd place. As you can see now, a few people on their feet here because Checa has closed in 7/10 of a second on Rossi on that last lap. And Checa is in with a shout of 2nd place here, certainly in with a shout of the podium. But he could even close down to Rossi here and mute those championship celebrations even further. The final lap of 21 at the Malaysian Grand Prix. Loris Capirossi all set to take back-to-back victories for the first time in his career. Valentino Rossi surely is going to stay on board to pick up the 2005 MotoGP World Championship title. But will it be in 2nd place or will it be in 3rd?
Everybody now looking at the big screen down the end of pit lane. It's not the easiest thing to see from this far back. But all eyes are peeled on there now. All the Yamaha people are looking at the big screen. Of course, they know he's going to win the world title, but they do want to finish in 2nd place. It's still very, very calm here. Honestly, it's quite surreal. Probably won't be so calm at Ducati, actually. I look up there, no, it's not. A lot more excitement going on up there. And people now coming out of their garages to get onto pit wall to cheer Loris Capirossi's 2nd successive victory.
Looks certain to be a double Ducati podium, but will it be a 1-2? Carlos Checa will certainly try and make sure that it is. He's hunting down Valentino Rossi. You just wonder if Capirossi could have got a better grid position. He may have been able to stick with the pace throughout this race. He started from 8th. He took his time to come through the pack, but he set an electric pace when he did, and now he's really closing in on Valentino Rossi. 1 turn to go. Rossi takes the inside line. Check around the outside. Loris Capirossi is going to win the Malaysian Grand Prix. It's his 2nd successive race victory. Who's going to take 2nd place? It looks like Rossi. Rossi will win the MotoGP World Championship regardless. He clinches 2nd place. He clinches the title. It's a double podium for Ducati at Sepang.
Still a lot of shaking of hands, a lot of excitement here in the Yamaha box, but no, it's a job well done. But yeah, now the smiles are coming out. I think it was a tough, tense race for them, but Yamaha and Valentino Rossi have retained the 2005 MotoGP World Championship. A truly remarkable performance by the team and by Valentino Rossi, who finishes 2nd here in the race at Sepang, the race won by Loris Capirossi. Now, the celebrations you can probably hear all around me, just beginning to start. I think it's just about sunk in that they've actually done it.
Perhaps more relief than anything else, and Rossi, it seems they're just letting us know 2nd today. Don't worry, I'll get that win.
Right, yeah, I'm with
race.
Lynn Jarvis now, the man really responsible for bringing Valentino Rossi to Yamaha. He's done it again for you, Lynn.
Thank God, that's all I can say. Last week we had a bit of a worry there, but I mean, it was going to happen, but it's so great to have it, big relief for everybody. 2 great years, wow, what can you say?
He is a remarkable man, isn't he?
Fantastic, absolutely fabulous, and he rode a great race today. Not easy, you can see the Ducati's very strong, we were struggling for grip, but he did a fabulous race and he brought it home. That's what it's all about.
He so wanted to win the race, to win the championship, but it wasn't possible in the end, was it?
It wasn't to be, and I think for him also, he'll take it any way it comes, so it's fantastic.
And another year with him at least.
Exactly, 2006, and hopefully we can do it again.
Lynn, congratulations. Enjoy the party tonight. And Valentino Rossi, once again, the king of MotoGP.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Lynn Jarvis there, head of Yamaha Motorsport. He might be partying tonight. Valentino Rossi, well, he'll be taking the party onto the aeroplane. He heads back home to Tavullia tonight, out of Kuala Lumpur Airport, over to Heathrow, and then on to Italy. And he will, I'm sure, have a little party on Monday night before flying back out to Qatar on Wednesday.
No, you've got that all wrong. I'm sure he'll just be having a
quiet meal.
Yes, a quiet meal and just a few cappuccinos and get ready to come back out to Qatar. I'm now in the garage. Jerry Burgess is busy sorting things out, and I'm trying to have a word with Davide Brivio, of course, the racing team manager behind Colin Edwards, and of course Valentino Rossi. He's talking to Italian television at the moment, but I'm sure we'll be able to get a word with him any moment now.
Valentino Rossi's fan club flew out here specially, and they celebrate with the world champion. Let's hear from his team boss, Davide Brivio. Sorry, Nick.
Oh, we've got the T-shirt here. I'm trying to read this, Davide. It doesn't really matter. I think it says something about 7 world titles, but he's done it for you again. Here we are. Absolutely exclusive. We're looking at the T-shirt, MotoGP, 500cc, 250 and 125cc. And before we talk to Davido, he's going to put it on. Let's just see you put the T-shirt on before we have a word with you. There we go. And, well, 7. It's like a nice Barry Sheen 7. Exactly. But
Mine's very well Barry Sheen. So it's great idea.
He's done it for you once again, and my God, he rode hard in that race, didn't he?
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, again, it was a difficult weekend, and again, once again, he show how he's great, how he's the rider in a difficult situation. We were struggling a little bit with the tire. He did a fantastic race, and I have no more words. Just enjoyed the party.
You've been around a long time, Davide, but have you ever seen a rider better than Valentino Rossi?
No, and I think it will take long. I don't know if we will see another one, but it will take for sure very long before that.
Enjoy the party.
Okay, thank you, ciao.
Well, while you're talking to Davide Brivio, Valentino Rossi is putting on a pantomime performance down there with Snow White and the 7 dwarfs, each one of them representing a year of each of his world championships.
Oh, I'm actually in the Yamaha pit watching that at the moment. 7 is the number, there's no doubt about that. But Jerry Burgess is he going to put Jerry Burgess is going to put your 7 on yet, or what are you going to do?
I don't know, Nick. I was going to open it up and make sure it didn't have La Repeater or something written on it.
Great performance by him today. It was a really tough race, and he so wanted to win it, didn't he?
Yes, I mean, we've had not a disastrous weekend, but it hasn't sort of gone as well as we would have expected based on our testing. We've made a lot of changes this morning coming into the warm-up, and more this afternoon. We felt we'd be competitive, but certainly the Ducatis and Nicky in the beginning there were very strong.
He's worked with a lot of world champions and a lot of top riders. He's very special, this man, isn't he?
Without question. I think it goes without saying. I think anybody who observes him in his career can see that certainly he's up there with the very, very best.
Now, I'm told he's going back to Italy tonight, but you're not going anywhere, are you? You're going to be in that little hotel around the corner, and could be a bit of a party.
No, I'm on a flight to Dubai tonight, so there won't be any party.
This is disastrous. We'll leave it for Phillip Island.
Righto, sounds good.
Thanks, Jerry.
Thanks, Nick.
Don't worry, Nick, I'll have a drink with you tonight. Don't worry about that.
Johnny, no mates, isn't it? Nobody wants the party with me. I'm all a bit disappointed about it all now, but yeah, they're really, really pleased. These are great T-shirts. That big number 7, and number 7 is the number, isn't it? Quite obviously, number 7, 7 world titles for Valentino Rossi. Surely the greatest motorcycle racer we've ever seen. But let's take it away from Loris Capirossi, Ducati and Bridgestone. Loris Capirossi has won the race here this afternoon. His consecutive wins for Ducati, and what a ride by Carlos Checa into 3rd place. But as always, the man that would take all the headlines, the Doctor, Snow White, whatever you want to call him, is the 2005 MotoGP World Champion.
Further down the order then today, just a chance to have a quick look through. Let's not forget Carlos Checa picking up his first podium of the season for Ducati. Nicky Hayden in 4th place. A very, very brave 5th place from Marco Melandri with those stitches in his foot. From Max Biaggi, Kenny Roberts, Alex Barros, John Hopkins, Colin Edwards, Tony Elias in 11th place. Good ride from Tony Elias at the circuit, where he took a clean sweep in the 250 race in 2003. Makoto Tamada, Robbie Rolfo, Shane Byrne and Ruben Schaus. But it's the man on top. Well, not quite on top of the podium today for Valentino Rossi. Second place at Sepang. But once again, he is the MotoGP World Champion. That very special Barry Sheen, number 7. And if you weren't quite sure what it meant, there's his friend Uccio on hand to remind you. Loris Capirossi, a stunning victory as well. It's been quite a memorable day for Italy. An Italian machine, an Italian rider on top of the podium, and once again their favourite son, probably the most famous and most successful Italian sportsman that's ever lived, Valentino Rossi, certainly the richest. Carlos Checa comes over to offer his congratulations as well. And gratefully received by the 7-time world champion, of course. 1997, the 125cc world champion. 1999, 250 world champion. 1 year to learn, 1 year to win a title in both classes. He did exactly the same thing in 500, stepped up to the Premier class in 2000, lifted the title in 2001, and since then he has been absolutely dominant. The MotoGP bikes arrived in 2002. He won it for Honda in 2002 and 2003. And for the past 2 seasons, after making that remarkable switch, he's repeated the feat for Yamaha. Not only has Valentino Rossi won the World Championship today, but he's also provided huge satisfaction to the thousands of fans who've come over, many of them from Italy, a lot from Australia as well and the surrounding areas, descended on the Sepang circuit here today. It really is a wonderful venue to come, so easy to get to, and everything's so cheap once you're here as well, particularly the entrance to the circuit here. The highest price paid for one of the 48 and odd thousand tickets that were sold here today was just $10 US, basically the equivalent of. So if you do get the chance to come to Sepang, many championships have been decided here, many parties have been held here on a Sunday night, and even though Valentino Rossi and Jerry Burgess might not be present, there'll be a few people raising a glass in their honour. The final results of the Malaysian Grand Prix. Sorry, Nick.
Yeah, I think you and I would be two of the people that will be raising our glass to a great world champion, and also a tremendous performance by Loris Capirossi. Sorry, carry on with those results.
Yeah, Capirossi winning from Rossi, Checa, Hayden, Melandri, Biaggi, Roberts, Barros, and then further down, John Hopkins, is slightly disappointing for him. 9th place after that 5th in Motegi last week, and then another front row start for him here today at a circuit that looked to favour him even more. But there is confirmation then, with 4 rounds remaining. Rossi is untouchable at the top of the championships. He doesn't even have to turn up for the last 4. Let's hope he does. Max Biaggi in 2nd place, and now Loris Capirossi propels himself ahead of Colin Edwards and Marco Melandri up to 3rd in the championship with 2 wins on the bounce.
Yeah, tremendous performance by Capirossi. Hopkins, you say, in 9th place. 10th was Colin Edwards. 11th, Tony Elias. 12th, Makoto Tamada. 13th, Robbie Rolfo. 14th, Shane Byrne, riding the Camel Honda for the first time. So he picked up some points. And Ruben Schaus picking up the last of the points in 15th place, with Franco Battaglini in 16th place. Here we go. The race that decided the 2005 MotoGP World Championship.
Bit of a chaotic start as Sete Gibernau and Nicky Hayden ran into each other, and actually it was Carlos Checa who was forced wide around the outside there, and that affected Checa's race. A collision again involving Sete Gibernau. This time it was with Shinya Nakano. This time it was into the final turn. This time he went down. He took Shinya Nakano with him, and Gibernau's season continued in the way that it seems to have done all season. Marco Melandri riding bravely at the front with those stitches in his foot for as long as he could possibly hold on for, but soon it was Valentino Rossi who came through. Nicky Hayden challenged Loris Capirossi for the lead for a while before running his Honda wide and allowing Rossi to catch up.
Carlos Checa really making his way through the field after not the best of starts. Carlos Checa getting past Marco Melandri, but this is the battle at the front, and Rossi takes the lead for the first time.
The Rossi fans were absolutely rapturous at that point, but Capirossi had other ideas. The second half of the race, with that hard front Bridgestone tyre, went in Capirossi's favour. He dived at the inside of Rossi into turn one, and that was basically the last we saw, or certainly the last Rossi saw, of his fellow Italian. Carlos Checa making his way eventually past Nicky Hayden after several failed attempts. Rossi did his best to stay in touch with Capirossi, but the little Italian from Bologna was not to be caught, and Rossi in the end had to hold off Capirossi's teammate Carlos Checa to hold on to second place. Either way, he would have won the championship. He did it with second place, but victory at the Malaysian Grand Prix went to Loris Capirossi.
And the world title to Valentino Rossi. Congratulations, Capirossi. Congratulations, Valentino Rossi. And third place, a very good third place for Carlos Checa, riding the second of those Ducatis. There we are, the winner's time, 43.27.523, an average speed, 160.9 kilometres an hour. In that heat and that humidity, that's an incredible performance. Parc Ferme is quiet. The rostrum awaits the arrival of the Doctor and the new world champion. If I got the new world champion, well, new, I suppose, for 2005, but not new as far as he's concerned. He's won 6 before.
Two Ducatis on the podium, and well, Nick, a lot of people questioned Ducati's decision to go with Bridgestone in the winter and switch from Michelin, who have dominated MotoGP over recent years, but already they've proven to be correct. Last year they managed 2 podiums all season, one for Troy Bayliss, one for Loris Capirossi, but this year it's been a very different story. 3 podiums previous to this round, including that victory for Loris Capirossi at Motegi last weekend, and then their second victory topped off with another podium here in Malaysia today. It really has been quite a week for Marlboro Ducati, and our thoughts, incidentally, as you mentioned before, Nick, go out to Livio Supo, the technical director of Ducati, who lost his mother-in-law in a freak accident actually on Thursday, and has had to fly back to Europe to be with her, but I'm sure this will have provided some ray of joy for him today.
Empty rostrum here in Malaysia, bright sunshine. The rain that was forecast on my television this morning never arrived. I think everybody very, very pleased about that indeed. We were in Japan last week, we're in Malaysia this week, and in 6 days time we're in Qatar. But today the race belongs to Loris Capirossi, the year belongs to Valentino Rossi. But still no sign on the rostrum of those 3 leading riders, and I think everybody at Yamaha expressed just how hard Valentino Rossi rode in this race. He desperately wanted to win. It came a stage in the race, and I'm sure we're going to hear him say in the interview that he just knew he couldn't win the race, and he just had to settle for second place, and second place almost became third place with that great performance by Carlos Checa. Good ride also by Nicky Hayden. He really did contest, well, the lead for a long time, and then eventually had to drop back to 4th place under pressure from Checa. And Marco Melandri, a very brave man indeed. Those 35 stitches in his heel after the footrest went through his boot and his heel in the crash last week at Motegi in Japan, 5th place. And you got to say, Max Biaggi, 6th place, disappointing. He hangs on to 2nd place in the championship, but he didn't push Valentino Rossi the way perhaps he could to prevent him winning the title. Valentino Rossi getting a hug there from the Yamaha promotions lady, the Yamaha media lady, Katie Baines, and Randy Mamola, a man that won 13 world titles, but 13 Grand Prix, but never a world title, just grabbing a word there with Valentino Rossi as he makes his way to the victory rostrum.
I don't think you would have minded winning 13 world titles, would he, Randy? But
no,
unfortunately, probably the unluckiest man in history not to win.
4 times runner-up in the World Championship. You don't get a lot unluckier than that.
And incidentally,
there's the boss. There's the people. You've got to behave now. There's the boss on the screen. Carmelo Espeleta, the boss of Dorna, the rights holders to MotoGP, just congratulating the riders and giving Valentino Rossi a hug. No wonder why. Valentino Rossi has given MotoGP a higher profile than they could have ever believed since he arrived on the scene.
A huge crowd of Rossi fans await the arrival of their world champion on the podium. It's going to be 2 Italians, 1 Spaniard, 2 Ducatis, 1 Yamaha.
Malaysian motorcycle MotoGP prize presentation. We'd like to invite the riders on the podium. Carlos Checa in 3rd place from Spain.
Carlos Checa steps up to the podium for the first time this season. His first rostrum finish as a Ducati rider. In 2nd place, only the 3rd rider in history to win the Premier Class World Championship on 5 occasions. Who else but Valentino Rossi, and the winner of the Marlborough Malaysian Motorcycle Grand Prix for the 2nd successive week. 2 wins in 7 days for Loris Capirossi. Corrado Cecchinelli steps up to the rostrum for Ducati in the absence of Livio Supo. What a week it's been for Ducati. They will never forget this. Previous to last weekend at Motegi, they'd only taken 1 victory. That was at Catalunya in just their 5th race in MotoGP. But here they are with 2 wins in 7 days and a rostrum to add to the collection. But it's Valentino Rossi, the best 2nd place he will ever have won in his career. It's enough to clinch his 7th World Championship title, his 5th in the MotoGP class. And as I said, only the 3rd rider behind Giacomo Agostini and Mick Doohan to do 5 World Championship titles in the Premier class. The winner of the Malaysian Grand Prix is Loris Capirossi, and I'm sure this will figure highly on his list of achievements. The former 125 and 250cc world champion, who went from pole to 2nd place in the race here in 2001. Italian national anthem booms for Capirossi, Ducati and Rossi.
Thank you very much.
2 out of 2 for Capirossi. The hat-trick could be next. We go to Qatar in 6 days' time for the 14th round of the MotoGP World Championship. 4 rounds to go of a quite stunning season that has seen Valentino Rossi dominate up until last weekend at Motegi. Will he be back to his best at Qatar in a week's time? For the time being, we celebrate. It's an incredible day for Italy. Victory for Ducati and Loris Capirossi, but a 5th straight MotoGP World Championship title for Valentino Rossi. Well, he might decide to be a little bit sparing with the champagne this weekend, save some for that long flight back to Italy tonight. Then again, I don't imagine he'll be short of offers for champagne in that 1st class flight back to Europe tonight. What a year it's been for Rossi and Yamaha.